Time is now 6:30 p.m. I will call this regular meeting of the Charter Revision Commission to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item B on the agenda, roll call. Matthew Radant is present. Lynn Desjardins. Present. June Gagney. Present. Cheryl Hurley. Here. Christopher Lumpkins. Colleen Magaskis is not here, but she did notify me ahead of time. Dan Kapskevich. Present. Thank you. Item C. Review and accept minutes of the December 4th, 2023 public hearing. Minutes were taken, submitted, and distributed. Any discussion? If not, I will look for a motion to accept the minutes.
Move to accept. I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Made by Lynn, seconded by June. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item D, public comment. If there is anybody who wishes to approach the commission at this time, please do so. Please state your name and village residence for the record.
Okay, Kevin Cunningham, 405 Moose Pond Road, and I would like to say thank you to this commission because this is a lot of work. It's a lot of review and trying to understand in detail what the charter does for the town of Plainfield. So this is another attempt to help to support the town of Plainfield and make modifications where we best can. For those who were able to receive at the last meeting it's not what I would call the red line version, but it is in red. This is the document that talks about Section 2.4. Did everybody get a copy of that? I wanted to lead with that because that's one of the most important parts of the charter revision this go-round. We're trying to resolve an issue which was mistakenly modified to not help the town when we go to a vote. The vote is for the two parts of the budget, which is the Board of Education and the town budget. And when we have a failure in one, we're supposed to not go back and have both go to modifications again, and unfortunately that's what happened. The issue here, hopefully we'll fix that, and I've given that to you from the attorney to give a review of what's going on. Matt has graciously also added some additional comment to this after the fact, talking about the capital improvement. And for the public to understand what capital improvement, the plan really is, it is a helpful guideline to give us a list of items that we may be able to follow up with a grant, which you have to have in the planning stage, and therefore that's the plan. Of those items, though, you also may be able to take those and put those into your budget, to put those into the fund balance area, to have them done immediately. So I'm going to explain to you what we'll be doing in this upcoming budget that kind of parallels that. There is additional need to continue on with two items that I would think would be important. One is we have the Lions Park, another phase of it, and I'm going to apply for a grant. I'm going to apply for a steep grant to continue on with that process. However, if that doesn't come through, I have some monies in this budget process which we'll look to see if we can actually continue on without a grant if it doesn't come in. The second part of that is also the front stairs here. The rampway that comes up is not ADA compliant. We have $211,000 that the Board of Selectmen had allocated from our final numbers from ARPA. But there's more to just the ramp. The ramp also includes the support beams underneath, which we see has some issues. We're going to see if we can jack those up. And also some water that is permeating into the building. So we're hoping that the $211,000 from ARPA will cover that. We'll have a structural engineer come and take a look at it, make sure we have an idea of how much it's going to cost us. But just in case it doesn't, there's LoCIP monies, but also the $200,000 I'd like to put in the into that capital improvement plan, which would then also go into the fund balance. And again, if we don't need it, we don't use it, that's fine. But it at least has to be part of that process. So for the public to understand that, it's kind of an important thing because, yes, it's planning, but we could also use some of that money to go into our fund balance. So it's there to help and support, but it's an important thing to understand that it's really not the budget. The budget really comes from the Board of Education and the town. So the question was asked, the chairman asked the question, which we forwarded over to the attorney. And just to let you know, the attorney did reply back that he was going to do a redraft and an explanation further of what the capital improvement plan would be. It makes it easier when it's in the charter so that people can understand it and go forward. So,
if I may, quickly, just for some context, my question was regarding section, I think it was 10.5C in the charter, under that capital improvement program section, regarding language that I believe to be a little bit misleading or confusing, given language invoking our reference term for the budget, and also the phrases authorization and inclusion. So I wanted to make sure that we cleared up any possible misunderstanding that could be construed from that section, given the nature of question 1, making sure that we're voting on these 3 articles separately and they're not bound to each other for ratification of the next, but also that we don't have a misunderstanding of how capital is approved, if it could be spelled out specifically to identify what is part of a budget as a town expenditure and what belongs to the capital improvement program.
Yep. So that's what's gone on so far. Again, the other questions that you've come forth with are on your part of your agenda. You have the commission draft report, and I'm not going to bore you. You've been through it enough. But for the public, if you want to have access to it, you can also contact the town clerk. The town clerk will have a list of these as well. So I think it's imperative that we do one more thing. And the one more thing is, once you have completed your function, which is to approve and go to the town clerk, then we go to the next steps, which is we as Board of Selectmen would then take those and have another public hearing, at least one, to allow more public input and vet it out. And I wish there was more people. I really do wish there were more people that would be involved in it. Even if you wanted to email and say, look, I wanted to know how does this work, or what impact does this have, or I have an idea or a thought, it would be helpful. But you have done a great job, and I want to thank you for that. For the public, there are 13 opportunities here, and I want to use that phrase, opportunities, because they are things that we will eventually, one way or another, be able to vote on as a town to incorporate possibly, and hopefully, into the charter to make some updates to help us all out. And I think that all these are important, and whether I will say it like this, because of the time constraints and making sure that we have enough votes, the reason why the Board of Selectmen held off up to a certain point was just for that reason, to hold off in case we don't think we're going to get, I think it's 1,600 people to come out to vote in an off election area or nothing to do with funding. It's difficult, but I think we'll be able to do it at one point or another and be able to get the public's input and be able to get it so it is passed. For those people who are listening and want to understand the issue, according to this Connecticut state statutes with charter revision, if you don't get 15% of your registered voters to vote on each and every item, then they all don't pass. So that's the important part of it. And we think these are very important, so we want them to be able to have an opportunity to vote on them all.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Kevin, have you thought about going on Putnam radio station and promoting?
Everything. And I agree, everything is an opportunity. We talk about whenever there's a town meeting or whether there's a budget meeting or anything to that nature, and we try to put the word out there. We talk about using Nixle, we talk about using radio, we talk about using Norwich Bulletin, Turnpike Buyer. We talk about every vehicle available to us to utilize, whether it's the signs, the lit signs in front of the fire department, now police station. Everything you can think of, barring mailings. to every single household. It's difficult because people just value their time in a different way, or they, again, I've heard, even after I've done all of those things, someone contacts me and says, I didn't know about this vote. And I asked them a question. I asked them the same question, which is, well then how is it that you get your information to vote? And most of the time what they'll say is by word of mouth. You can't beat that. You can't combat that at all. And I appreciate the opportunities to try every way we've had so far. And we'll continue that. We just, by the way, we just did a little contract with WINY so that we can get more word out there on a regular basis as to things that are happening. So we'll continue that thought of how do we get that information out there.
Do you have somebody that works with the computer on, like, Town of Plainfield Facebook page?
We have a Town of Plainfield Facebook page, which we do utilize that as well for that reason. We also have the town Facebook and town website. So those two constantly are being updated with information.
Because more people tend to go on Facebook than they do using their computers and going on online with them.
Yeah, we try every means possible, really do. Well, with that said, again, one more time, I want to say thank you very much. And if there's any questions, this will be the time.
I had one question. Just you mentioned the attorney's currently working on a redraft of the red line. Two questions. What is the anticipated availability or the completion of that draft?
With the attorney's office, you never know. Sometimes they have downtime and they're able to get to us right away. I know our attorney that was working with us, Rich, he works over this stuff on the weekends. So occasionally I've had conversations on a Saturday or Sunday with him.
Okay.
So I'm hoping that he'll be able to get a quick turnaround, and within 2 weeks or so we'll have the red lines, which I'll share with you as well.
And given that fluid nature of what a response time might be, the red line, as I understand it, is something, they're not the questions themselves, but it's how the questions, if ratified, would be implemented into the charter.
Absolutely.
So if I understand correctly, if there is a different or a new point or question raised, not to change a question, but about the impact of the question, that red line could still change between now, approval, and ultimately the vote on the question.
Absolutely.
That wouldn't be within the scope of what the charter revision can do. Our scope is limited to wording of the questions. The red line is something that could still be an evolving document should additional information or different information be made available.
Correct. And that's a great point, because I'll just utilize the November timeframe. Even between now and November, if we wanted to have a public meeting, a public hearing, I should say, to share that information about that, I think that's appropriate. So I would ask the members to come back and we don't want to do a disband too early. We want to make so it's whenever it's necessary we do that properly. But I'd like to have every member available for that so they can ask questions. Okay? Any other questions or?
So you're going to shoot for the spring? Or what are you thinking?
Well, I think we'll definitely get this stuff back from the red line version plus that last piece for capital improvement plan from the attorney. You actually had three, I think.
Three.
Yep. So we have one that's required, but that doesn't mean we can't do another one. Okay.
I just had a question in terms of, I know our focus was on the questions and solving the major issues. A couple times we talked about, if we were to do a republish of this, right, at some point in time there would be, are we able to catch the typos and those types of aspects within this document?
Absolutely. Typos are a little different. You can do that all in one shot without having to have it voted on.
Are you referring to typos in the questions or typos in the charter?
In the charter itself,
Okay.
yeah. In other regions of the charter, not specific to the 13 opportunities.
Are you saying the attorney will go through it?
It already has, yes. Except for a couple things we're working on right now. Like the unintentional last page.
Yes.
Yeah, that type of stuff.
That's a great example.
Yeah. We can do that without having to have it voted on.
And if that could be provided as an
It will be-
advisory document to us too.
It will be part of that red line.
Those aren't anything we can vote on because they're not questions,
Yep.
but we could still stand to benefit from having that as a reference.
Right.
Again, thank you very much.
Anyone else for public comment? Hearing none. Moving on to item E, discuss and act on approval of the draft report as the final draft report to be submitted to the town clerk. So what you have is page 2 of your 2-page agenda are the 13 questions that make up the 2023 Charter Revision Commission draft report. These are questions that have been previously individually voted on and added to this report. I know there's only one small, I'll stress minor, change I'd like to make to question 13. And that is just to be, for the sake of being specific, I would like to identify 2-1A as being the section that that needs to be modified, as there are multiple sections of 2-1. I will look for a motion to modify question 13 on the draft report to reflect section 2-1A.
I move to modify that.
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Is there any other discussion or potential action, edits, changes that any of the membership would like to consider or put forward for the draft report questions?
I think we've gone over it and over it and over it, and I think we finally have the 13 that we wanted to work with, and I just think we ought to go with that.
I'm good with it. After some other research, you know, in terms of looking for the clarification, maybe Matt, that's some of the stuff that you provided to Kevin. When I was Googling other towns and things of that nature, I did find documentation where they did go into descriptions for programs, plans, and projects, and budget. And so I do realize that it is a confusing aspect, not just amongst us. So I think it's really good that we're simplifying that here, and I think our recommendations as they are here will be consistent from a simplification standpoint. We can certainly overcomplicate it, which it was kind of screwed together. So I like the proposals that are in here today.
I agree with you, Dan. Sometimes if we add too much, it just gets more confusing. This is simplified.
Yeah, and I went back and forth on some of that due to that research, where it did talk about the hierarchy of you know, the projects, the plans, and all that aspect of it. You know, like towns, they had actually described it, right? It's different cities, different interpretations. So I think what we've got here for this town is the right thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Any other discussion?
Well, I think whoever wrote this charter originally had the right idea to keep it really difficult to change things. So that's good. They did their job and they made it where you really have to think about what you're doing. If you're going to change something, does it need to be changed? And now the big thing that we have before us is to try and convince 1,600 people to come out and vote.
Yes.
For this, whether yes or no. So somehow we need to, I'm already thinking about it, how we can do something this time. And I don't think people really, I think people also trust, you know, they might have trusting, they say, okay, you do the job, and they're not worried about it. You need to kind of get them, like you said, when it comes to money, that one on the budget was a big problem because it affected people.
Right.
It's like, hey, I don't want to pass all of them. Yeah, money's tough. That's my opinion about it. It's a heck of a job, and it's made difficult, so that you can't just sit there and change things in the middle of the night and nobody knows. The process works. It may be difficult, but
Yeah, it works.
that's what it
So if we did a special election and it doesn't pass, we don't have enough voters, then we can't do anything until
The work would be voided.
that we just void everything that we've done, so.
I mean, meeting minutes would still exist in videos, but
Yeah,
you're right, the
but,
tangible product
Right,
would
wow,
cease to
look what
be
they
a,
went through.
an
Yeah.
item.
And it just delays the whole
Right.
process.
Clearing
But
up
then again,
things.
during a busy election, are they going to take time to, I know I did years ago when there were quite a few, I didn't know I really didn't know they were talking about. So,
And there was a question.
If we
Clearly
have to cut it,
uneducated on it.
if we have to cut from 13 down to say 10, it's the selectmen that will make that decision as to which ones they're going to leave out.
How,
Oh, sorry.
I recognize Kevin coming here.
Yeah.
great question. The process is, the next steps would be for the Board of Selectmen then to have a public hearing. And then after that, the Board of Selectmen would be choosing to which venue we would go to, whether it be a special vote in probably the end of March or wait until the November timeframe. I think that it's still an opportunity, but I think you know where I'm coming from. Is basically I'm looking at the November timeframe only because I want to make sure that your work doesn't go for naught. And even at a special election, I'll just use what was it, the past year we went to vote and we had, what, 800 at a referendum? 880 people that came to vote at a referendum. And that's your budget. And that's how many people you got to vote. So for us to say, oh, hey, let's come on out for a vote on just the charter revision changes is extremely difficult to do. However, this is an upcoming election year, which is a national election. I don't think we'll have any problem whatsoever getting those votes.
The turnout will be there, and I think that's an important caveat to that fact
Yeah.
is the turnout, the registered voters voting is the important metric to consider, not necessarily how many of them answered the questions. You know, for ratification that matters, but not for approval of that process exceeding 15.
Plus, there'll be absentee voting this year, correct? They're allowing the absentee voters. too.
Yep. The other thing to note here is that last time this was done at a national election, you obviously had everything pass, but the issue was the fact that you didn't have as many people voting for those questions at the top. Whether they didn't know what they meant or whether they said, you know what, I'm just going to vote for what I normally vote for in an election cycle. But that's our job. Our job is to make sure that they understand what it is, the importance if they don't vote for it. I would like to hear from them as a public and see what their concerns are. But we definitely have to go through that process of A, having a public hearing for us, B, figuring out what we're going to do next. And to your point now, back to that, the priority. What will fit up on an election cycle? I've already looked at the last one. I think at least 8 will fit up on top of there. I'd like to prioritize them with your support to make sure that we know what's the most important ones, put them up in the front section, and then go from there. If we can fit all 13, that'd be great. If not, which were the lower ones we can work around and go to the next go-round of charter revision.
Correct, yeah. You don't want to have them overwhelmed by too many questions they won't answer.
Yeah.
Well, it is so problem.
But they might answer the first few.
First
at
few,
least, so.
right, correct.
I mean, I plan on going on to every media venue that I can to share this information. I also plan on putting out videos, question by question video, to put it up on our town Facebook page. Because I think it's important for them to see it again and again and again. Not that they want to see my face, but they want to see and understand what the question is. I would ask any member here to also be on the video, so that you can again express your opinion about certain certain things. So it's important to share that information as best you can.
And going up to the senior center when the vets meet and some of the seniors,
Absolutely.
because that's a big group that we need to get out to vote.
I was just invited to the Veterans Coffee House. They're just picking a date for me. So I'll go there with this in mind.
Love it.
I'm sure they're going to ask me the questions like, what else is going on in town? But this is
Right.
just as important.
They'll appreciate it.
Yeah, if not more so.
But not all of them are from Plainfield, but
True.
most of
Right,
them.
right.
But that's where you go to the different venues to get the message out. So I guess it's Friday night here for the senior chorus. So I can stop that before they start and talk about the charter revision questions.
Oh, I don't know.
I could be booed off stage very quickly.
As long as you can do it while dancing.
Talk to
or
him.
singing.
Yeah.
Come up with the 12 days of Christmas.
Wait till you decide when you're going to
Yeah.
have it. Spring it up.
Yeah. If you do it too early, then they're going to forget.
Right.
And how does that affect us if we don't have a special election?
Okay.
The Charter Commission is still,
It's still valid until a certain point where the Board of Selectmen would then say, okay, we're going to disband. So I would give the example of if we decide to go to November, we're still going to hold on to you and then have it so that we can actually reference any questions through you to maybe a public hearing closer to that date. And it'll make it much easier. With the charter, on the charter, I'll check with the state statutes to verify when.
That was one note I was going to make as well, as my understanding of it was slightly different, but we can connect to what the
Yep.
statute states.
And you're still participating members that doesn't have to have a board. You can actually go to the meetings and say, this is what we did when we were on. Okay?
If there is no other discussion or desired modifications or comments, I will look for a motion to adopt the 2023 Charter Revision Commission draft report as amended.
So, I mean, a second.
I'll finish my motion first, sorry.
Oh, okay.
I have a slight cough. To adopt as amended as the final draft report to be submitted to the town clerk.
so
I'll second.
So that's Lynn with the motion, Cheryl with the second. Any remaining discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Before we jump to item F, I will just reiterate that I believe as part of the process, it's a 45-day window before the next public hearing, which will be called by the Board of Selectmen. So once that information is out there, then I think it would behoove everybody to try and be present at that. But additionally, I would also, just as a reminder, we are not disbanded as an adoption of the final draft. If and when that time comes, it will come. But whether it's sooner or later, I will, if we need an additional meeting, I will reach out to everybody to establish a good time, make sure everybody's aware of the meeting being called. That would be a special meeting. And if the communication is regarding a disbandment of this, then I will also be sending something to the commission just to additionally notify everyone. So with that being said, I will look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
second.
June makes the motion for adjournment, Lynn with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned at 6:58 p.m.